Trump acting like Big Brother. It doesn't want to be told what to do. So why is the UAE upset? We'll get to that in a bit. First, let's tell you what the UAE has done. It has threatened to cancel an F35 deal, a $23 billion deal with the United States, a deal to buy state-of-the-art fighter jets, drones and other defense equipment. The UAE has put that deal on hold for the moment. It was struck in August 2020. It was a cornerstone of the Abraham Accords, a gift of sorts, you could say, from Donald Trump to Crown Prince Al Nahyan, a gift for the normalization of ties between Israel and the UAE. So this deal was signed in August last year, but it hasn't really taken off. That's because American politicians have way too many conditions. They're spelling out one caveat after another. What sort of caveats? Mostly statutory requirements and guidelines on how these fighter jets should be protected. But these guidelines betray America's suspicions, and they stem from China's influence in the UAE. So what does the US fear? They fear that these fifth-generation fighter jets could become victims of Chinese espionage. So the US has laid out several conditions on how to protect them, several terms for the agreement to go ahead. The UAE feels that these terms and conditions are a bit too burdensome and inconvenient. It feels that they undermine its sovereignty and may jeopardize its ties with other countries, especially countries like China. So the UAE has warned the United States about a potential cancellation. And the timing of this warning is extremely significant. It comes on the same day when a delegation of high-ranking military officials from the UAE was visiting the US Department of Defense, the Pentagon. So it's being said that the UAE is basically trying to use the F-35 deal as a bargaining chip to win over some concessions from the United States. That this deal is being used as a ploy to make the US come to the negotiating table with more lenient conditions. Halt work on a Chinese facility, a facility which the Americans thought would be used for military purposes. We're talking about a Chinese shipping port being built at a secret location near Abu Dhabi. On the face of it, this facility was purely commercial, but the US said that it had intelligence that China would use it as a military base. So they put pressure on the Emiratis, and the UAE had to stop work at the site, or had work stopped. Another thorny issue is Huawei's 5G trials in the Emirati Kingdom. In 2019, the UAE allowed Huawei to install its equipment to establish a high-speed wireless network. The intention, they said, was to diversify their economy to move away from oil export-generated revenue. But Washington did not see it like that. It saw the deal as a threat to America's interest in West Asia. The US felt that Huawei would be able to steal the technology America is selling in West Asia. So it asked the UAE to pull the plug on the deal. The UAE refused. America set more conditions on the F-35 deal. The issue remains unresolved. The third bone of contention is the UAE's decision to buy Rafale fighter jets. Earlier this month, France agreed to sell 80 Rafale fighter jets to the UAE. This is part of a $19 billion deal between the two countries, France and the UAE. Now, America saw this deal as an insult, as a betrayal of its friendship. But the UAE government has explained the reason behind the warning. He says the UAE does not want to slip into a Cold War, a tussle between China, which is one of the UAE's key economic partners, and the United States, which is one of its biggest military allies. Let me tell you what the advisor said, and I'm quoting, "There is a thin line between competition and a new Cold War. The Emirates do not want the rivalry to slide into a second Cold War. As a small state, we will be affected negatively by this and will not have the ability in any way to affect this competition even positively." Now, here's the thing. The UAE has a fair point. It shouldn't be dragged into the US-China rivalry. It's a multipolar world. Every country has the right to choose who it does business with. It cannot and should not be told what to do. At the same time, countries also need to distinguish between partners and predators, between all-weather allies and transactional players. China is known to keep friends with benefits. It has a record of laying debt traps and undermining national security of almost all of its partners. We do hope the UAE is aware about this and is making its decisions wisely.